Is this the one? G'day guys, and welcome to the next episode of the Two Red Chairs podcast. I'm your host Frank, and today it's a bit of a special one for the broadcasting schedule of Two Red Chairs, because I'm adding an extra episode in here. It's usually every 2 weeks, but I've got Michael Bruny-Groth here from Logo Package, and he is going to share with you a new update on my favorite bit of, I guess it's now called software, isn't it?
Yeah, you could call it software.
Yeah, sweet, because it never used to be, and this is why I'm so stoked with this new version of it. Apart from that, there's several other features, and we'll get into that. But, Michael, welcome. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm well. Just living the dream here in Chicago.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
The Windy City. Very well for a Friday morning here. So we're doing this recording in preparation for when you hear this, probably on the day that Logo Package is released, which is the 3rd of August, or the 4th of August if you're in Australia. And I wanted to get Michael in to chat about this particular Illustrator, or Adobe Illustrator plugin, you could call it, but it's a bit of software now that works with Illustrator to allow you to export your logos exponentially faster for your clients. And I have found this to be so beneficial. When I bought it first up, it paid for itself in the first use of it, and we'll get into price and everything like that at the end of the conversation. But Michael, we've chatted since sort of day dot here, so we have a good relationship here, but I want to kind of know if we can take a bit of a summation of what Logo Package Express is. How do you define it? Because every time I get into it, it gets very granular and I get bogged in the detail, but I'm sure you've got it nailed.
Yeah, the elevator pitch, as it were. Well, you know, the headline on my website says, "Spend your time creating logos, not exporting them." And that's really the dream there. When you get to the end of a logo project, if you're providing a professional set of files, it takes a long time. You have to export them manually. You got to name them all, make all the folders, and if you're providing a lot of different variations, it can take a very long time. So, Logo Package Express, as you said, is an extension for Adobe Illustrator, or a plugin, and it automates that whole process and gets it done. Instead of it being 45 minutes or an hour plus, it gets it done in under 5 minutes. So that's the elevator pitch.
And this is to kind of go a little bit further than this. Like if you're spending the time of not just exporting, but then also filing your images of different logo variations, if it's PNGs, JPEGs, AI files, EPSs, all this kind of stuff, this does that all, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in addition to exporting, it's also going to name all of those files, all of those logo files, sort them into pre-made folders. Well, actually, it's making the folders on the fly. So you get a nice kit of folders with files pre-sorted into them with a good naming convention that your clients are going to understand. All of the just mind-numbing, boring production stuff that comes along with making logos at the end anyways, totally taken care of for you.
Yeah, and that's what I always loved about this since day one, was just that. I mean, it's cool to see everything being exported in all the different formats that it does. And it changes RGB to CMYK in reverse, and it also adds Pantone for you automatically, both encoded and uncoated, which is, man, I don't know how you do this, how you pull it off, but I think it's just incredible. For something that's such a simple idea, and to have such a time saving, because I remembered my first branding job as G'day Frank for my business was like pulling teeth to get every little logo bit and piece into a folder and then name it all, each individual file, and folder it so it made sense. And I was like, how do I make it make sense? And then this guy comes out of the woodwork and just blows it out of the water with his first incarnation of Logo Package. And I was like, it was one of those, like that meme from Futurama where he's like, shut up and take my money. Like that was exactly it for me. And I was just happy to get on board. But what I want to do first, Mike, is take a step back to the inception of this idea. How did this come about? What was the need? What was the use case? I mean, obviously we all have this need as logo designers, but for you, where did this idea come from?
So, when you get out, well, I went to design school. I know there's a lot of people who are self-taught out there, and I applaud them because that's a big undertaking. But when I came out of design school, I thought I was gonna just rule the world and be design famous. And you get into your first job, right? You get into your first job or two, and you realize very quickly that you're just like a production robot. And I had worked for one agency, and then I started at another agency which did branding, and my boss was just very, very particular about how those logo files got sent out. And I learned a lot about breaking things apart, giving different color variations, the whole process. But every time we estimated that, we billed out an hour at least to do those logo packages, and that's how long it took. And just every time we had a logo project come through, I was the person, because I could do it the quickest, and even that was still an hour. So I knew it was a problem. It was something from my past that had bugged me. But I don't personally promote the idea that, if you can scratch your own itch, you can make a product that's going to sell. I think a lot of people think, if I make something that solves my problem, millions of people are going to want it. So the inception of this idea, while I did have background in it, didn't necessarily come from that experience. It came from doing research. And I was a freelancer. I had worked at agencies, and then I went to freelance. So, have that design background. And I had two really big clients, and one of the clients kind of went under. So with that spare time, I thought I was going to become like this unicorn designer who could develop things and design them. And I started teaching myself, JavaScript, and I started reading a book about product design, which was like totally different. Okay. And I've discovered a research method called Sales Safari by, it's an idea kind of coined by Amy Hoy and Alex Hillman. They have a course teaching, how to make products and that sort of stuff. Okay. But basically it just says, go to places where your audience hangs out and just listen to them complain. And just see what they're talking about. Don't ask them what problems they have. Just observe. And so I went to a lot of design forums, and I did have the bias of I want to look into the logo design space. And it just came up over and over and over again. People either didn't know what files to give their clients, or they had that experience and they knew it took forever to make all the files. So it was like these two things. And I was thinking, okay, what can I do to solve these problems? And my first idea was, well, I'll just write a book, right? Like I'll write an ebook or something about the whole logo package process, exporting all the files and what's the best way to do it, or make a blog about it or something like that. But then I went back and I was like, I was pretty quick in Illustrator, and I know there's these actions and stuff. I bet I could figure something out. And so I tackled this problem from maybe if I just create something that exports all the files that you need anyway, you don't really have to educate yourself too much. This is going to give me what I need, and you can learn about it later, especially these self-taught people who are, they've got a real project going on and maybe they don't have time to do all this research. Yeah, exactly. And then secondly, if I could make it happen faster, then, I'm solving both sides of that problem. So yeah, I set off into the crazy world of Adobe scripting forums, and I recorded some actions and made some templates, and I put it all together in this thing with the really smooth and easy to say name of the Logo Package Automator Bundle. And that was the first.
Really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah, that was the first version of the product. And I got to say, it made about 80 logo files in 5 minutes. So I really thought, I had something. And I did all of the work around like how do you launch a product, and this is the same for people who are starting a design business. How do I get clients? It's all the same thing. You got to generate leads and blah blah blah. Well, I had a whopping list of 36 people, and I don't think you were on it. To be honest, I don't think you were.
No, probably not at that stage. I've always known it as Logo Package Express, I think.
Yeah.
So whenever you must have changed to that, that was probably when I first found it.
Yeah. I hope you've already forgotten the first name. So
remember automated
Yeah.
bundle? I think that was it.
yeah. So I sold 2. I launched to an email list of 36 people, and I sold 2. And 3 months later, I was ready to give up. And then some things happened. I'm happy to tell you about that if you're interested.
Yeah, let's go. I mean, this is kind of what I find interesting about products, services that really may not take off to that person's desired hope or intent initially. But for those people like yourself that don't give up on it, and like you've said, you've done a heap of research to then go deeper and really find the root of the problem and then iterate on it and adapt it to more people's needs and switch all things around that you might not have thought were an issue, but you're hearing this time and time again kind of thing, and you're creating something that's always going to be better, and you're iterating, and that's kind of what a UX UI kind of person would do. And realistically, every designer should be doing that in a sense. So this is why I kind of wanted to cover this, is to see how that progression has happened, to realize for all of us as designers that it's not just, okay, try something, if it doesn't stick, give up. Like, that's not necessarily the point I think you want to make, is it?
Yeah, so there's 2 really interesting topics in there. There's what is failure, and then there's refining a service or refining a product and taking feedback.
Yeah.
Which feedback is integral to the design industry at large, but also
Definitely.
if you're making a product for people. So yeah, I've had friends who have struggled with things in the past and or known people who have kind of given up maybe before I thought that they should. And they're not weak people or anything like that. It's just you've got other things going on in life and you kind of have to move on. Sure. But in the case of this endeavor of making Logo Package Express, if I showed you the timeline of the first year of my business, it's a flat line. It is a flat line with 2 little sales at the beginning there, and then it just takes off. And to me, that's what failure looks like. Failure looks like a long line of not much happening, and then it clicks. And it's not a eureka thing, but it's just like if you put in the work over time, and like you're talking about with feedback and that sort of thing, unless you're just doing something very bad, like trying to sell sticks to a nature officer or something. I mean, like you just
yeah.
That's a horrible example.
Us to an Eskimo. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's the phrase I was looking for. Not sticks to a nature officer, whatever that means.
We all understand you, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm coining that term right now. Anyway, so that to me was failure, right? Like I didn't let the failure stop me from pursuing this, although I was about to. I got 4 months in and had only made 4 sales, and someone reached out to me. His name is Arun. He was on Young Guns in the future.
He said, I remember him. Yep.
He said, I'd love to get your product, but right now it might be a little too expensive for me. Would you mind if I connected you with some people with big audiences, and then I could get the product for free? And this was that alpha automator bundle version.
Yep.
And so it was around the holidays, and I was like, well, I won't be greedy, I guess. And so I said I didn't have much hope that something would come of it, but it totally did. And he hooked me up with Ian Paget of Logo Geek, and
nice. Ian
was like, hey, do you have an affiliate scheme? I really want to help you out. And I said, of course I do. Yeah, definitely. And I figured it out, and I the platform I sell through does offer affiliates, so we worked it out, and then it was like that first $1,000 of sales, and that first $1,000 was validation to me, like people want this, it just needs to get in front of them. And then it's like I know that this thing is infant, it's in its infancy. I know it could be so much better. I don't have the know-how to make it better, but I can hire somebody who does. And that gave me the confidence to do that. And that's where we shift from a bundle of, do-it-yourself scripts and things that takes 20 minutes to set up to a fully fledged product. So there's the failure component at the beginning of just it's never as simple as just like stick with it. But if you choose a path, I guess is the best way to put it. If you choose a path and you carry on down that path, opportunities will come your way on the path, and then you can move along. But you got to be on the path for a while. So that's the failure component of it. The iteration, we can. I don't want to ramble on. I'm happy to talk about that. But is it, from your perspective, right? Like you have to take feedback on your designs. You have to kind of elicit feedback before you've even done any work in the way of what is the problem we're actually trying to solve, right? So it's the same for design as it is a product.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't see it as any real difference there in terms of iteration, because I mean, even if it's on your own accord to iterate until you have that gut feeling that it feels like the right solution to the problem, or to fit the need, that's kind of when you know you've nailed it. And this is kind of what it sounds like for yourself in this respect, is that it didn't feel like it was getting anywhere, and as you said, it just flatlined. But I hazard a guess there was that gut feeling inside that you knew this was a good idea. Like it hadn't got to a point where you'd realized how you would want it to be ideally, and there's barriers to overcome and hurdle over, but you do it over time, and it's not going to happen just sort of one of those things overnight. But if you know it's a solid idea and you're getting that, I guess, validation from other people to say, I think you're onto something here, it's then up to you to really have the passion or not to go ahead and keep pushing it, because no one else is going to do it for you in this situation, especially for you.
Right.
And that's kind of where the iteration, I guess, comes from, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, I think in design, and also when you're making a product, passion is an interesting concept, because, you get to work with clients you like sometimes or most of the time or whatever, but are you that passionate about what they do? You want to try to be, right? You want to be invested, but you're really passionate in your craft, you're passionate in problem solving, and you're going to apply that to the client. And it's really only when they give you that validation back of like, you've done so much for my business, or I love the way this looks, or, you see that joy. That's where that like passion grows. So with the extension with Logo Package Express, I was interested in playing around with the idea of like, what would it be like to sell a product? But then it's like, oh, well, now 1,000 people have bought this and they're saying nice things to me. And yeah, they start sending feedback, and I could have just let it coast and, made $200 a week off of it for, 7 months or something, and then it fizzled into...
it could have stayed exactly how it was when you first made it, and that be it, kind of thing. And you could listen to feedback, but it's up to you whether or not you want to implement it.
Right. So there's in the product space, there's really, I guess it works for design as well, but there's kind of two ways that you get feedback. There's like the explicit feedback of, hey, I don't like your folder structure, man. Like, give me a different folder structure. Okay, sure. Heard ya. I'll mark that on the board. And then there's people who are like, so how do I change the color or whatever? And that question comes up over and over. They're not saying anything is wrong, but you see that they're struggling with something.
Sure.
So, in design, it's the client comes to you and says, my website is ugly. And then, okay, that's kind of explicit feedback, but you've also got to observe and say, well, is it the conversion, or is it the fact that nobody's buying your product? Is it the fact that they missed this button, or, whatever? You got to kind of pull it out of them or intuit those sorts of things. So Definitely. It really is very similar, but the difference between an okay designer or an okay product person and a great designer or product person is whether you take that feedback, right? If you think you've got the solution and you're the best, and your client is dumb, and or the users just don't understand or whatever, like, you can be okay. You'll make something pretty that maybe works, maybe doesn't. But when you say, you know what, the customer understands something about this that I don't, or my client is I might be an expert in design and aesthetics and communication, but my client is an expert in their company. And if I just totally dismiss all of their feedback, I'm not really solving their problem, because I'm not taking into account all of the knowledge that they have. And if I did that with a product and didn't take into account, like, kind of jumping the gun here, but one of the new things I'm implementing is the ability to put clear space around your logo. I would never do that in my own logo packages, because I think it makes the designs harder to work with.
Sure.
But a lot of people have a lot of really good reasons for doing that, so I'm not going to let my own bias get in the way. Yeah, I've implemented the feature for them.
Nice. Yeah, and this is what I think what you've touched on there is something that is definitely universal in every kind of designer's experience of interacting with a client, a customer, an audience. Like this could apply to your social media following, realistically, of creating content for them rather than just for yourself. I mean, it's your choice, as you allude to, but if you want to gain that traction and have something that is meeting that need or want or desire or whatever it is, if you're not paying attention to that, then it's kind of like, why do you even want them there in the first place? Why do you want them to buy it in the first place, type of thing? It's like you're just dangling like a little shiny bit of gold and going, hey, do you want this? Come and get it. And they're like, oh, no, but I want it made into like a ring. They're like, no, it's just a bit of gold. I'm sorry, that's it. Like, you take this or leave it. Like, totally up to you.
Yeah. It's a stick, and you are a nature officer. Nobody wants it.
Nobody wants the stick. Looks like a good stick, but yeah. So from that first iteration, which, I guess by your description would have been a pretty, or my comparison is pretty hodgepodge difference between, like, chalk and cheese between what it is now to what it was. And even still, what it was fantastic. Like, it saved me hours, I'm going to say. Even if you had to run scripts to make the folders or do the logo exporting separately, and it was a bit more finicky compared to what it is now. Like, you didn't know what it could have been back then either. So this was just like amazing. And I found this from Ian Paget's Logo Geek Facebook community.
Right.
That's how I think I came across it. It was either Ian that posted it or someone else might have posted about it. And I was just like, what is this? It just sounded too like, to me, it was too affordable not to. And like my hourly rate, to be totally, transparent here, is $100 Australian, and your product was, I think at the time, like half that. Yeah. And I was like, if this is going to save me that hour, or even if it was half an hour, I've made my money, like right there, made it back in that first go of it. Not to mention every single other one after it. And it's kind of like that, what's that phrase? Opportunity cost, where you're looking at something that you could sit there and do it manually and not have to, get somebody else to do something for you, or something that you could buy that would automate it. Whereas, could this be realistically something that you could use time and time again, which is the best thing about this product for you, is it's scalable in that sense that people can use it over and over again. But for you, you can sell it over and over again. Rather than a bespoke design or something like that as a designer. So that's a big plug for you.
Yeah, it's a one-time purchase, and I think a lot of people are super like over all of the software as a service monthly subscriptions. A major update here and there that you got to pay a little bit to upgrade. Okay, but it's not a monthly thing. So yeah, you can make your money back in one project for sure.
Yeah. So there's no question in there, but my question now is that getting to that first iteration of what Logo Package Express 1.0 was, like you said that you didn't have the ability in your own capacity to create something like this and the knowledge to do so. What was that journey like for you to create that, because you had to bring someone else on?
Yeah. So I had done a lot of research for my original version in the scripting forums, and these are the people that really know what they're talking about. So I went back there and this is a clever way that you can get somebody to work for you. is to say, hey, I realize that you're an expert in this field. I was wondering if you know anybody who might want to work on this project with me.
Classic
because
question.
then,
I love it.
Because then you're not saying like, hey, you rando, work for me. Okay, I'll drop everything. Like, instead, it's like, I respect you, and I think you might be able to help me with just minimally giving me the name of somebody I could reach out to. And if they are free, then they'll be like, well, yeah, I know a guy. It's me. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Or a lady, a guy, a gal, whatever. But I'll
folk.
do it.
Yeah.
The folk.
peeps.
And so that's what I did. I reached out to a few people, and the person I ended up working with they had their own whole section of the forum, like dedicated to their process. So I was like, okay.
Wow.
And that person was in my budget. Like a lot of other people were not in my budget.
Nice.
So take that as you will. But we worked together, and it was really great because it's still behind me. This is my workflow stuff for like how the first version was going to work. And it's a bunch of sticky notes.
Yeah, that's it. If you're listening to this, it's a bunch of sticky notes.
Right. There's a bunch of different colored sticky notes on my wall. Anyway, working with my developer Trevor from Creative Scripts, I had all these ideas, and he wasn't afraid to say, it's kind of garbage. I don't understand why we would need to do that. He had his way, but like it didn't bother me. And sometimes I was right, and a lot of times he was right, and it was a really collaborative process. Because, I had an idea for how this would work, but I'm back in scripts and action land. I mean, I don't even know what the possibilities are. So, it was really weird to be in a space to be, like, as a designer, I have to make proposals and stuff all the time, right? And the offer that I was getting was like, just tell me what, how much you owe me in an email or something like that. It's like, no. So I made the proposal for him to be like, here's the terms. This is how it's all going to work. But yeah, really great experience. And that's been ongoing now for almost 2 years, a year and a half.
No, it's fantastic what you guys have come up with to integrate it now directly into Illustrator. And this is why when you first kind of released it as that proper plugin, which it did it all for you in the one go via Illustrator, I was just like, I just want to sing this from the rooftop, like, for you. I mean, affiliate or no affiliate, I really don't care, because I feel like this is just something that every logo designer needs to have. And for God's sake, why Adobe Illustrator hadn't thought of this to begin with. I mean, this is where I'd love to see this go, is that you sell this to Adobe Illustrator for just like mega bucks. And then you're just sitting there like you're Scrooge McDuck, just counting your dollars and just be like, ha ha ha, ha, I made it, kind of thing.
That is certainly one strategy. I think Adobe likes that people make plugins so that they don't have to work on their product, and people can still, I'm not bad mouthing them, but why would you put in the work to make something that an extension already does really well and brings more people onto your customer base? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a standalone application. So your Affinity people, your Corel people, your whatever else people, anybody who makes a vector. Yeah, well, if you could make a vector from it. But anybody with a vector file can make a logo package, dedicated software. And then that would just blow it out of the water. But that would be an extremely large investment to have to make as a single business operator type person.
For sure. Without going too far that way, if we take a step back to when we launched, when you launched, it's not my product, when you launched Logo Package 1.0, that process of getting that to market, because I saw how much effort you put into that launch and getting it out there and working with other collaborators to get the name of it out there. How was that process? Because for many designers, it might not be something that they ever go to do in their career, but if, say, for instance, you're listening to this and you have some kind of idea and you want to bring it to market and know what it takes to get it to market in a way that has become so successful like it has for Michael. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, that was the beginning of the process. The beginning of the process was what are the steps I need to take to market this? And I did all that stuff. I wrote blog posts. I made an explainer video that I wrote the script for and did the kooky voice and narration for and did the animation. It took me like 40 hours to put the animation together. And, built the landing page and did all of that stuff. And, I was doing fine to be able to get from 0, nobody knows you, to 36 people are willing to sign up for your email list just to learn about this product. I mean, that's great. But even if I sold it to all 36 people, it's still not a viable business. For sure. So I had that whole marketing piece in place. What I didn't have was an audience. And so that's where the affiliates came in, and that relationship with Ian, who just by sharing it in his Facebook group could, and on Twitter, could get me, $1,000 in sales really quickly. I mean, that was the transformational thing, because you go from thinking, I've got something, I made it, I spent 500 hours building this thing, and I guess I just got to move on to the next thing, to like, wait a minute, what, somebody wants this? They have feedback? Like, whoa. Yeah. So then it was just like, well, can I be so bold, Ian, as to ask you if you know other people who might be interested? And then, it was those connections. So if you make a connection with somebody, typically you'll be surprised. They'll be willing to introduce you to people, especially if they are affiliates. Like, they know, they get it. They're that's what all the people in their community do this. Yep. So yeah, then I got connected with other people, and it wasn't really until about, 4 or 5 months ago that I realized you have to do more than that. I was really good because I had a product that everyone could just see the value in immediately. And, people listening, you might be working on something that's really valuable. But it doesn't have to be like the greatest idea in the world for it to be successful. But I say that it was immediate because I think it was easier for me to hijack that system of like getting referrals from people. Whereas if you're working on a book or something about a topic that's kind of been discussed before, you might have to do a little bit more work. And what I realized that more work was I had to bring value other than just like a potential revenue stream to these relationships. So now when I reach out to somebody to be an affiliate, I also let them know I have a big network of people that I know. And if I want to be on somebody's podcast, I'll say, hey, I've got this product, or I know I'm an expert in these sorts of topics. I'd love to be a guest. But if you don't want to work with me, here's a list of people that I could connect you with that could be guests on your show or something like that. And that just adds even more value to the idea that we could collaborate in some way. And again, it's kind of like when you try and get that first job, you need experience to get the job, but you got to get the job to get the experience. So same thing, you need to have a network before you can offer the network. But there's something in there. I mean, Arun found a way to bring me value to get the product for free at the beginning. Yeah. So there's always a way to do that. And if you can help 2 people or more get together and make money with and for each other, that will always come back to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's a great frame of mind to have. And for those of you listening that aren't kind of aware, I guess, of what affiliate marketing is, in this context, it's basically offering somebody else to promote the product for you and receive a percentage of return on that sale for that particular person that's referred them onto, let's say, in this case, Michael's product. Which works as a way of marketing because you're not having to do particular advertising cold and or marketing or advertising cold to people that aren't aware of who you are, aren't aware of what your product is and does, and if it's of benefit. Whereas when it comes from somebody that is known and trusted to that individual, and that person has had a good experience with something like this and can advocate for it for money or no money, then it comes across as something that should be valuable realistically to that individual if it's up their alley kind of thing to want to check out and have a look at off the back of that kind of referral, which is what that affiliate link, is.
Yep.
And I think it's a great way of doing marketing these days, especially with smaller niche influencers or people that have an extended network, like Ian, and there's many others in the design community that do this. I've kind of jumped on board and doing that for G'day Design Live, and if you want to be an affiliate, let's say, and it can create a form of income for yourself or for your business, as a kind of side hustle-y type thing, because what's one little referral to say, guys, have you checked this out? Like, I've been using this today in my client work, whatever it might be, and this Logo Package Express is just like such a freaking time saver. And go, by the way, here's a link, you can buy it. If you do buy it by this link, it helps me out, it helps you out. It's a win-win. It's that same value exchange in that respect.
Right. Yeah, and I would say to anybody listening, if you are interested in, if you have a product and you're interested in working with affiliates, I had no idea when I started. I said, I'll give you 5%. I thought, if it's $100, you get $5 and whatever, we'll sell 1 million of them and you'll be happy. It doesn't work like that. You're going to want your affiliates to keep you at the top of their mind. And to do that, you got to give a big chunk of your profit away. But you cannot reach 1 million people when you have 36 people on your email list.
Exactly.
And so offer that between 20 and 40%. 30 is a really good sweet spot. And if you can, offer a discount too. If you're selling a $10 template, I realize that's going to sound bad to add a discount to it, so maybe you don't do that, but definitely give a large percentage, because you want those people to want to work for you. And what eventually happens is, just by them putting it out into the world, then that network of like peer-to-peer sharing and stuff happens, and you'll find out that you end up getting more sales from that relationship that aren't directly related to the affiliate anyway.
Yeah.
So it's fine to give that big percentage. It'll work out.
Yeah, nice. That's great advice. So this brings us now, I guess, to the big launch. If you're listening to this now, it's either today or it has been just a couple of days ago, or maybe even weeks ago, depending on when you are listening to this podcast episode. But it's now at 2.0. And for those of you that have used this before, you'll know how much it's been as a lifesaver. But there have been some things that you've looked at from a lot of feedback, I'm guessing now, because you've had a heap more customers since launching 1.0, let's say.
Right.
To then iterate, like you've been talking about, to create this version. So what does this do differently or improve upon to make this such a even better product, whether you have this or not?
Yeah. Right. So a lot of feedback, and version 1, fully functioning extension, does a great job. Version 2, taking that feedback, adding new features to make it an even more powerful tool. The first thing is not going to be known to customers that it worked out well for, and not going to matter to people who haven't bought it yet. But
Sure.
The installation process is a lot more simple now. It used to be you had to open a script from Illustrator, and it failed maybe 2 or 3% of the time. So a lot of emails for support came to me. I have a blank extension window. It's not working. So version 2 has native installers. You get a DMG if you're on a Mac, or an EXE if you're on a PC, and you just double click it the way you would install any other piece of software, which I think is what you were alluding to at the beginning when you said that the extension was like proper software now. So nobody really cares about that, but I just wanted to drop it. The major,
I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, well, but because you've experienced it both ways, right? But new people are going to be like, oh, this is how you install things. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But major features. Big one, file name and folder name customization. I came up with a good folder structure, a good file naming convention from my years of experience with this, but it's not going to work for everybody. People call things different things. Is it an icon? Is it a symbol? Is it a logo mark? Whatever. And also, people speak different languages, I found out. English is not the only language.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah. So this feature allows you to totally customize every part of the naming convention. So if you rename the folders, rename all the files to whatever it is that you call things. So that's big feature number one. The next major feature is multi-scale export. So when you set a logo in Logo Package Express, it exports all the vectors at whatever size your artwork originally was. But when you're talking about JPEGs or PNGs, then you kind of have to specify a size. So there was always a setting to put in a width and a resolution. But if you wanted to export logos that were 300 pixels, like to have a small version, and you wanted to export logos that were 1200 pixels, then you needed to run the extension multiple times. Kind of a pain. So now there's multi-scale export. You can define as many scales as you want and export them all out. Major feature number 3, tied to those two things, is the ability to save presets for those scales and naming conventions. So if you're bilingual or something like that, yeah, you can save a preset that's both of those different languages. If you are exporting social media avatars, but you're also exporting app icons and favicons, save different presets for the scales. So that's a big feature. And then one of the most, besides the file naming, the other most popular requested feature was the ability to add padding or clear space around your logos. And I think I said that earlier in the show, but just clear space is a barrier against ugliness. Like, don't put your other crappy logos or whatever too close. Yeah. And so now you can export your files with that built in and set it up. And you can even kind of hack it to make like square orientation logos for like social media and so on. So that's a big one. Yeah. Yep. And the last major feature that I can think of right now, because there's a bunch of stuff, but they're not all big features, is a Pantone first workflow. So when you design a logo, you can design it in RGB, you can design it in CMYK, and I was really only accounting for those two options. So if you brought the logo in, it would be whatever color you set it up as, and then we would do the conversion from CMYK to Pantone. But a lot of people have a Pantone logo. That's how they work. They wanted to set Pantone logos. And what would happen is we would convert your original Pantone into CMYK and then reconvert it back to Pantone, and it could be completely different colors than what you chose. There was a manual setting, but that meant you had to manually recolor things. So the Pantone first workflow, if you have Pantone swatches applied, saves them, and when they generate the logos, it reapplies them to the Pantone variations that we create in the extension.
Yeah, nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Very clever. And this is kind of the thing, without seeing this in action, it's very impressive when you see it in action. And I've shown my community this on one of our Monday calls, and they were like, yep, sold, done. Like, it makes it that much more impressive when you see a logo that you've made. Like, just the idea is that you set your logo, you can piece out each part of that logo lockup. So you've got, say, your symbol, you've got your word mark, you've got your tagline, and it will separate them all out onto different artboards into one Adobe Illustrator file. And then it will spit out all the different color variations of either all white, all black, inverted. So if you had a colored symbol and a black word mark, it will invert it to a colored symbol and a white word mark, and then all the way down until it gets to Pantone if you're doing print versions, and then it can do the whole thing again for RGB. And I was just like, holy moly, like, this is just such a game changer as soon as you see it. And that's when it shows you all the different variations, but then you export it and it's just as quick, and it goes through and you see it all going. And it's within each color variation, you can do each one within 2 minutes. If you have it all set up right and it's all good to go, just and it'll do it for you, and you're happy days. But you can customize things along the way if you don't want certain bits. Like, I've found it really helpful if you're doing several different variations, to eliminate some of those options that do spit out, and then export it, and then you're golden. It's even less time to have to export. I cannot stress this enough, that this is something that all designers need. It just makes sense, and it sounds like the biggest cheesy sale, but from someone that's used this time and time again in the last 2 years, it's fantastic. Like, it really is. And my hat's off to you, Michael, because we talk about this a lot. It's probably like the only thing we do talk about is your product most of the time, because I'm just so fascinated by your process and the way that you've come about this. And to see it going from strength to strength and seeing this now become your full-time job, essentially, kudos, man.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's I really appreciate hearing the kind words, and also you being my guinea pig when I have a new idea and have you take a look at my Figma mock-up or whatever. So
yeah. No, it's always a pleasure to see something new. Every time Michael sends me a message on Messenger, it's like, want to see something new? I'm like, yes, please. Yes, please, right now. Thank you very much. So, Michael, we're going to finish off here by just mentioning this is either out now if you're listening to this, or it has been for the last few days. You can get it for how much?
Well, the launch sale is kind of like a before the price goes up. So the current price, or the price before version 2, was $99. And the price after launch week will be $119. But I'll have to throw out a spoiler here. People who are listening, I think, will have a way to get a nice $20 discount from Reagan, as I call him, or Frank, as some of you may call him.
Yes, we'll get to that.
Sure. So the idea is, if you're listening to this, you'll probably be able to get it for $99.
Yeah, perfect. And if you do have it already, what is there a cost involved to upgrade to this new version?
Right. If you are a current user, this is a major upgrade. The intermediate bug fixes and small features are always free, but this is a major upgrade. So since the price is going up by $20, I'm only asking that my existing customers pay the difference, and it will cost $20 to upgrade from version 1.
Nice. And I think that's fantastic. It's so affordable to get to these new features that are even more of a game changer for the way that you want to customize your exports, which is fantastic. So the offer here for you to get the $20 off if you're buying this new, so if you haven't got it already, this is where the offer applies. If you want to sign up to the GDL newsletter, there is a link in my Instagram bio, or you can sign up to it on G'dayDesignLife.com. If you sign up to there, the email that you'll get back automated will have that link for you to buy it, and it will be automatically applied with that $20 discount. And this is in US dollars as well, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, I hope. I hope I've been doing that math right for the last few years.
Cool. Yeah. So it's in US dollars. So if you're Australian, it'll be a little bit more just based on our conversion. But for $20 US off, if you join up the newsletter, or if you're already on the newsletter, you'll be receiving that either today or tomorrow, depending on whenever you're listening to this. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what people have to say about this new update, and seeing how many more people get on board with this and rave about it, because I'm already a big raver about it. And I know a lot of people are about it as well, which is fantastic. Like, I remember when you first launched Logo Package 1.0, I sent a heap of people like messages, like DMs just on Instagram going, hey, have you heard about this? And you should get on board because I see you're a logo designer. And a lot of them were like hesitant because they didn't know me. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever, no worries. And they just said, yeah, no thanks. And then they came back to me like 6 months later going, I should have listened to you, man. Like, this is fantastic. I was like, see, it's not even my product. And like, it just is fantastic. So, mate, thank you so much for coming on here. I always want to spruik this product because it's just fantastic, as I keep saying, fantastic. Thanks so much for your time. I know your busy ass is motoring trying to get this to launch at the moment, because we are a week behind here. So I'll leave it to to get it all to fruition. So good luck to you, mate, and thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Reagan.
To find the logo package anywhere else, actually, that's probably what you should do, is to give maybe that plug to find it if you want to go direct to it.
Yeah, if you want to learn more about it and see it in action and all that good stuff, which you should, before you buy anything, you should look at it.
Yeah.
Just go to thelogopackage.com. And I've got all the social media. It's the same thing, the logo package.
Nice.
So yeah, check it out. And then if you wanna be really cool, you can find me on LinkedIn, and the name is Michael Bruny-Groth. And if you can figure out how to spell that, I will definitely accept your
nice.
request.
Good challenge accepted. Nice one. All right, guys. So just to reiterate, if you want to jump on board getting Logo Package Express for Adobe Illustrator, there's a $20 gift to you for those that subscribe to the GDL newsletter. There's a link in the description here of the notes, or it's going to be on Instagram or on my website if you sign up to that newsletter. And I hope you really enjoy it. I'd love to hear that feedback that I can pass on to Michael, or you can give it to him direct himself on Instagram. But that's going to do us for now. I'll see you next week for the next episode to get back onto normal every 2 week schedule, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening on there. Otherwise, see you next time. Bye.